4, construction has begun on Omaha's first mass timber commercial building.
It is promoted as being more environmentally friendly than most newer buildings downtown. The project is located southwest of 15th and Mike Fahey Streets in the city's Builders District.
Laura Samble shows us how it's breaking new ground on many different levels.
Despite bitter cold temperatures, construction crews are hard at work in north downtown Omaha. They're breaking ground on a 4-story building that will house offices, stores, and buildings. Known as the 1501 Mike Fahey Plan, this will also be Omaha's first known mass timber commercial project.
It's nice to be part of something new and different.
Mass timber is an engineered wood product that's said to be strong like concrete, but kinder on the environment. Zach Gamer with the project's developer, Noddle Companies, says it's state of the art.
The timber is an awesome element. It's sustainable, it's environmentally friendly, it lowers the carbon footprint for the development.
Gamer says when complete, the building will be 50% mass timber. Environmentalist David Corbin is hopeful.
I appreciate anybody that tries to use innovative practices to be more environmentally friendly.
But the Sierra Club says the claimed benefits of mass timber can be misleading when the impact of logging on forests and forest carbon is left out of the equation.
The main thing that is of concern is how they source the wood, where it comes from.
Gamer says the product is sourced mainly in the Pacific Northwest and does not contribute to deforestation.
I think these trees are grown with the intention of being used for this purpose.
An intention to be both progressive and a good steward. Laura Samble, 6 News.
And the project is expected to be complete sometime next spring.